Imagine a world where every color has faded, not literally, but emotionally. A place where the vibrancy of life has been drained, leaving only endless shades of gray. For Daniel, that was his reality. He was an executive successful by every measurable standard, living in a penthouse overlooking a bustling city. Yet beneath the polished surface, he was battling a profound, suffocating loneliness. His life was a blur of meetings, deadlines, and impersonal transactions. Connections were fleeting, laughter felt forced, and genuine human warmth seemed like a distant memory, a concept he no longer understood. Daniel carried a heavy burden, a past loss that had left him emotionally numb, building walls around his heart so thick that no one could get in, and no genuine emotion could get out. He moved through his days like a ghost, efficient and precise, but utterly disconnected. People respected him, but no one truly knew him. He believed he was destined to live his life in this perpetual twilight, isolated by his success and haunted by his past, convinced that joy was a luxury he no longer deserved. He thought he was invisible to the world, and in turn, the world seemed invisible to him, a blur of faces he never truly saw. But what if, in that vast, impersonal blur, amidst the crushing weight of modern life, a single unexpected spark can ignite? What if an act so simple, so mundane, so fleeting that it's barely registered, can ripple outwards, transforming not just one life, but many? This is the extraordinary, deeply moving story of Daniel. It's a testament to the quiet desperation that can lie beneath even the most successful exteriors, the profound impact of genuine human connection, and the astonishing journey of how one soul, lost in its own shadows, found its way back to light, all because of the power of a single smile. Prepare to be deeply touched, because this is a heartfelt chronicle about the unseen magic that reminds us just how interconnected we truly are. Daniel's world was one of meticulous order and chilling silence. From his minimalist, high-rise apartment, he looked down on the city, a sprawling ant farm of humanity he felt utterly detached from. His days began before dawn, fueled by strong black coffee and an even stronger sense of obligation. As a senior executive in a competitive tech firm, his life was defined by numbers, projections, and quarterly reports. Success, he believed, was his only currency, his only shield against the emotional void that haunted him. The void had been carved out years ago by the sudden tragic loss of his younger sister Emily. She had been his world, his only true confidant, a bright, vivacious spirit who saw past his quiet exterior. Her death, sudden and inexplicable, had shattered him. He retreated into himself, burying his grief beneath layers of work, ambition, and a chilling emotional detachment. He reasoned that if he didn't feel, he couldn't be hurt. He built walls around his heart, impenetrable and cold. His interactions were polite, professional, but devoid of warmth. Colleagues admired his efficiency, his sharp intellect, his ability to execute without emotion. They called him the closer. But no one ever saw the real Daniel, the one who spent his evenings in silent rooms, the one who occasionally found himself staring blankly at the city lights, a profound emptiness gnawing at him. He ate alone, exercised alone, and despite his success, felt utterly, completely alone. His phone, a constant companion during work hours, remained silent in the evenings, a stark reminder of his isolation. He had convinced himself that this was simply how life was for him now, a lonely ascent to the top where the air was thin and companionship a distant, unnecessary luxury. Every morning, his routine was identical. Wake up, dress impeccably, grab his briefcase, and head straight to the ground floor. He never lingered, never made small talk. The lobby of his building was usually bustling with residents heading to work, but Daniel moved through it like a ghost, his gaze fixed straight ahead, avoiding eye contact, his face a carefully constructed mask of indifference. He paid attention to nothing but his destination, his next meeting, his next task. The world outside his carefully curated bubble was just background noise, a necessary evil to navigate. He believed he was completely self-sufficient, needing no one, connecting with no one. But deep down, a quiet desperation brewed, a longing for something he no longer believed existed for him. That particular Tuesday morning was no different from any other. Daniel had woken early, the familiar dull ache of unfulfilled sleep lingering. He'd showered, dressed, and was already mentally reviewing his agenda for the day. He stepped into the elevator, impeccably dressed, his mind already miles away. Elevator stopped on the 3rd floor. The doors slid open, and a young woman stepped in. She was a cleaner, he assumed, given her uniform and the large bucket of cleaning supplies she wheeled in front of her. Her hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her face was tired, perhaps a bit worn, but unremarkable. Daniel barely registered her presence. He simply shifted slightly, creating space for her, his eyes still fixed on the floor indicator above the door dot as the elevator began its descent. The bucket of supplies, perhaps overloaded, wobbled precariously. One of the cleaning solution bottles, a large, heavy plastic container, tipped over. It wasn't a dramatic crash, but a significant spill. The blue liquid, thick and slightly sudsy, began to spread quickly across the pristine elevator floor, seeping towards Daniel's expensive leather shoes. The young woman let out a small, distressed gasp. Her eyes widened in panic. "Oh no. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry," she stammered, her face flushing crimson. She immediately bent down, fumbling for a rag, her hands trembling. She looked utterly mortified, anticipating a harsh reprimand, perhaps even a complaint to her supervisor. Daniel's first instinct was annoyance. His shoes, his schedule, another unnecessary delay. He felt a familiar surge of irritation. But then something unexpected happened. As she knelt, her head bowed in apology, her uniform slightly stained. From another splash, a single strand of her hair came loose from her bun and fell across her forehead. She instinctively tried to brush it away with the back of her hand, but her hands were already covered in the blue liquid. Her movement was clumsy, almost comical in its desperation. In that precise moment, Daniel, for the first time in what felt like years, actually saw her. Not as a problem, not as an inconvenience, but as a human being, genuinely distressed and embarrassed. And in that fleeting instant, a tiny, almost imperceptible shift occurred within him. The carefully constructed mask of indifference wavered. Without thinking, without any conscious decision, a small, almost involuntary smile touched Daniel's lips. It wasn't a mocking smile, or a dismissive one. It was a fleeting, soft, almost empathetic smile, a quiet acknowledgement of her human predicament. He didn't say anything. He didn't offer to help. He simply offered that single subtle smile. The young woman, still fumbling, looked up for a fraction of a second, her eyes darting to his face. She caught his smile, her own eyes wide with panic. Just moments before, softened. A flicker of relief, then a tiny, almost imperceptible smile of her own. A brief, genuine moment of shared humanity crossed her lips. It was gone in an instant as she returned to mopping up the spill. The elevator doors opened on the ground floor. Daniel stepped out, his usual brisk pace momentarily faltering. He looked back for a second. The young woman was still frantically cleaning, her back to him. He shook his head slightly, dismissed the momentary lapse in his routine, and continued on his way, his mind quickly reverting to his schedule. He thought nothing more of the incident. It was a single, tiny, forgotten moment in a sea of impersonal interactions. He didn't realize that in that fleeting exchange, he had just set in motion a chain of events that would change not only her life, ultimately his own. The young woman in the elevator was Maria. For her, that single fleeting smile from Daniel was a lifeline. Maria's life was an endless struggle. She was a single mother, working 2 cleaning jobs to support her elderly, ailing mother and her spirited young son, Leo. Every day was a battle against exhaustion, against debt, against the constant fear of not being enough. She rarely smiled. Herself, her face etched with the weariness of endless worries. Kindness, especially from a wealthy executive in a fancy suit, was not something she expected. She was used to being invisible, just a part of the building's background. When Daniel smiled, it was like a tiny sunbeam, piercing through her perpetually gray world. It wasn't a grand gesture. He didn't help her clean. He didn't offer money. But in that split second, he saw her. He saw her distress, her humanity, and that simple, unexpected acknowledgement, that silent reassurance, filled her with a warmth she hadn't felt in years. It was a reminder that she wasn't completely invisible, that genuine empathy still existed. It was a spark. That day, Maria felt a lightness she hadn't experienced in a long time. She cleaned with a little more vigor, hummed a little tune as she worked. When she got home, instead of collapsing, she decided to do something she hadn't done in months. She baked cookies with Leo, her son. The smell of cinnamon and sugar filled their tiny apartment, a forgotten scent of joy. Leo, usually quiet to his mother's perpetual tiredness, laughed as he smeared flour on his nose. Maria smiled, a genuine, wide smile. The first real smile in a very long time. The ripple effect continued. That newfound lightness, that spark of renewed hope, subtly changed Maria's demeanor. She seemed a little less burdened, a little more approachable. One afternoon, while cleaning the lobby, she saw Mrs. Henderson, an elderly resident known for her sharp tongue, but also for her love of gardening. Mrs. Henderson was struggling to carry a heavy bag of potting soil. Maria, instead of simply walking past, remembered Daniel's smile. That small moment of seeing her. She went over to Mrs. Henderson. "Can I help you with that, Mrs. Henderson?" she asked, her voice unexpectedly light. Mrs. Henderson looked surprised. "Oh dear, that would be lovely. It's heavier than it looks." Maria carried the soil to Mrs. Henderson's apartment, chatting easily about plants and flowers. Mrs. Henderson, rarely soft, found herself enjoying Maria's quiet company. A few days later, Mrs. Henderson called Maria's supervisor, not to complain, but to commend Maria's exceptional kindness and helpfulness. She even offered Maria extra work, helping with her personal garden. For extra pay. This unexpected side job provided Maria with a crucial financial cushion. She could afford better food, new clothes for Leo, and even started a small savings account. The stress began to ease. She found herself less exhausted, more present for her son. The quality of her work, fueled by a lighter spirit, also improved noticeably. Her supervisor, impressed by the glowing reports and Maria's renewed energy, promoted her to team lead with better hours and better pay. Maria, once living in constant fear of losing her job, now found stability and a path forward. Her life was still challenging, but the suffocating weight had lifted. She started smiling more, laughing more easily. Her son Leo thrived in this new atmosphere of quiet joy. The single unseen smile from a stranger in an elevator had given her something far more valuable than money. It had given her back her hope, her belief that genuine connection existed, and that she was worthy of being seen. Months later, Daniel's life, despite his professional success, remained unchanged. The walls around his heart were still intact, his days still draped in shades of gray. He barely remembered the elevator incident, the fleeting smile. It was a distant, insignificant memory. Then came the annual building charity gala. Daniel, as a high-profile resident, was expected to attend. He dreaded these events, the forced small talk, the superficiality, but duty called. He arrived, impeccably dressed, a polite, distant smile plastered on his face. He moved through the crowd, his gaze detached until something caught his eye. On a small stage in the corner of the ballroom, a young boy sat at a grand piano, his fingers moving with surprising grace. He was playing a beautiful, melancholic melody that swelled with hope. It was a composition Daniel vaguely recognized, something he'd heard before, perhaps years ago. The boy was talented, truly gifted. As the boy finished, the crowd applauded warmly. He stood up, bowed, and then a woman walked onto the stage to join him. It was Maria. The cleaner from the elevator. Daniel froze. His meticulously constructed facade faltered. Maria looked different. Her uniform was replaced by an elegant, simple dress. Her face, though still tired, was lit up with a warmth, a quiet confidence he hadn't seen before. She introduced the boy as her son Leo and spoke briefly about his musical talent, her voice filled with pride. Then she said something that made Daniel's heart stop. "This piece," Maria began, her voice soft but clear. "Leo composed it himself. He says it's inspired by a moment he witnessed, a moment of small, unexpected kindness. He says it sounds like hope." She looked directly into the audience, her gaze sweeping over the faces until it found Daniel's. Her eyes, filled with a profound gratitude, met his. And then she gave him a single radiant smile, a smile that was both familiar and entirely new. In that moment, Daniel was transported back. The elevator, the spilled liquid, her distress, his fleeting smile. And then her smile. He remembered it all, now with breathtaking clarity. He suddenly saw her, truly saw her, not as a cleaner, but as a woman transformed, a mother glowing with pride, a human being radiating a quiet strength. And he realized, with a jolt that shook him to his core, that he was connected to this. His single forgotten smile had been the spark. His walls, painstakingly built over years, began to crumble. He felt emotions he hadn't allowed himself to feel in decades: awe, humility, profound gratitude, and a piercing, almost painful warmth. He saw the ripple effect of his own tiny, unconscious action. He hadn't just made her day. He had, in some unknowable way, contributed to the very light now shining from her and her son. He walked over to Maria after her son's performance, his voice surprisingly steady. "Maria," he said, extending his hand. "Daniel, from the building. I remember. Your son is incredibly talented. And you look radiant." Maria smiled, a genuine, heartfelt smile. "Mr. Daniel," she said, her eyes shining. "Yes, you were that kind man in the elevator. Your small smile that day, it changed everything for me. It reminded me that even when things are dark, there's always a little light. It gave me hope." Daniel stood there, tears blurring his vision. He had given her hope. And in doing so, she, inadvertently, had given him something even more profound: the courage to hope again himself. His life, once in shades of gray, suddenly exploded with color. He saw the people around him, truly saw them, not as nameless faces, but as individuals, each with their own stories, their own struggles, their own capacity for light. From that day forward, Daniel's life began to change. He started reaching out, tentatively at first, then with increasing openness. He reconnected with old friends, began speaking to his family, and even started volunteering at a local community center, seeking out ways to create his own ripples of kindness. He learned to smile authentically, to truly connect, to allow himself to feel both joy and sorrow. He realized that true success wasn't about the numbers in his bank account, but about the richness of his connections, the warmth in his heart. He never forgot Maria and Leo. They remained friends, a beautiful reminder of the moment a single, unseen smile had broken through his darkness and illuminated his path back to a life filled with purpose, connection, and most importantly, genuine light. Daniel's story is a powerful reminder that we often underestimate the profound impact of our smallest actions. In a world that often feels cold and impersonal, a single smile, a moment of genuine acknowledgement, can be a revolutionary act. It can pierce through the deepest despair, ignite a forgotten spark of hope, and set in motion a chain of events that transforms not just one life, but countless others. Maria found renewed strength and purpose because she was seen. Daniel found his way back from a life of emotional isolation because he allowed himself a fleeting moment of empathy. This is the simple yet profound truth of humanity. We are all interconnected, capable of illuminating each other's paths with the simplest acts of kindness. The power isn't in the grand gesture, but in the sincerity of the intention, the willingness to truly see another human being not. So, the next time you encounter anyone, remember Daniel and remember Maria. Remember that the world is filled with silent battles, with people carrying unseen burdens. And sometimes, the only thing they need is a tiny flicker of light, a simple gesture of connection, a single smile that reminds them they are not alone. Because that one smile, that one moment of shared humanity, has the unimaginable power to change everything. If Daniel and Maria's incredible story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the profound power of a single, simple act of kindness, please take a moment to like this video. Your likes help us share these powerful true stories of human connection and hope with more people who need to hear them. And if you're moved by true tales of the human spirit, unexpected connections, and life's beautiful transformations, be sure to subscribe to Heartfelt Chronicles. We bring you inspiring stories every week that remind us of the extraordinary good in the world. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss another journey with us. Have you ever experienced or witnessed the profound power of a single smile or a small, unseen act of kindness? Share your heartwarming stories in the comments below. Let's celebrate these everyday miracles that truly change lives. Thank you for watching. And remember, your smallest act of kindness might just be the one that changes everything for someone else. See you in the next Chronicle.